Back, Francis. Yes, let's cross now to our political reporter, SABC political reporter, Mzwandile Mbeje. He's still live outside the Union buildings now. 19:20 is the time. Time fast running out for that announcement coming up at 8 o'clock. Of course, Mzwandile, I'm sure there's much more activity there now. Everyone's setting up in anticipation of that announcement at 8 o'clock this evening. But what would be some of the key, priorities for this administration?
Well, Griselda, it's true. Everyone is basically seated inside the media that is here to really witness the announcement of the new cabinet of this sixth administration of President Cyril Ramaphosa. Well, during his campaign, during his party's campaign, I think he spoke really about, I think I'll summarize it on three things, Griselda, in terms of what he would want to do when he really gets off the ground. I think one of the things that the president wants to do is to make sure that he gets the economy to work to its full blast so that it can be able to create jobs. Right now, the country is really struggling when it comes to that front. So the economy is the number one priority, because once you do something right about the economy, so it will be able to create the much needed jobs. But of course, not only that, the issue of corruption in our country, many people would tell you that there is actually a lot of money in this country, but it's just that people don't use the money the right way. And as a result, people who are supposed to benefit don't benefit. So, and I think that's the other area that the president and his administration will focus on. And then the third one, in terms of the summary, he will want to make sure that the service delivery implementation is speeded up, because the problem is that in this country, Griselda, whether you are in the Cape or you are in the far north, so you will see people protesting, complaining about basic services. So I think that's one of the issues really. When he puts together his team, that team must be able to identify what are some of those issues really that are troubling people. Is there a connect between the government and the people on the ground? Because sometimes you find that the issues that people are complaining about are very simple issues. And I think he would want to really strengthen that area of communication between his administration and the ordinary people. So that's how I would sum up the key priorities of this administration, Griselda.
All right. Mzwa, just talk us through what exactly happens tonight in that little room there at the Union buildings. And of course, after that announcement, what next?
Oh, well, if he is on time, we hope he's on time. That is 8 o'clock. So we expect him to ascend that stage inside to announce or to unveil the team that will help him to carry the sixth administration forward. So that will be the first thing that will happen tonight. But Griselda, it doesn't end here. Those people who would have been appointed tonight will have to be sworn in for them to be able to hit the ground running. So we expect that swearing-in ceremony to take place perhaps tomorrow. If it's not tomorrow, it will probably be Friday. But I would assume that he would want to delay no more, given that already there's been a number of days since he was sworn in himself on Saturday. So you'd get a sense that he would want to really have things speeded up. But from there, Griselda, and then the ruling party, which won the elections, will then have its meeting, its NEC, where it will then identify what sort of priorities they would need to look into as they start governing the country. And then after that, there will be what they call a cabinet lekgotla. So which means after the ruling party or the governing party would have spoken about a number of issues, so those issues can only be processed by government. So there will be then the government lekgotla that will then discuss those priorities, because for the governing party, all they can say is to suggest and recommend that we want to see this happen. But it can only be actioned through the state. So after the cabinet lekgotla has met, then it will then form what you would call at a later stage SONA, the State of the Nation address. Because
that's correct.
When the president, on the 20th of June, so we already know the date of the State of the Nation address is the 20th of June, he will then go to Parliament, basically unveil those priorities that the governing party would have spoken about, that the cabinet Lekgotla would have discussed, and then that will really be start of this sixth administration. That's where you will see where this country will be going.
Mzwai, just before we wrap up, there were 33 deputy ministers previously, and of course, just talk us through the understanding that 2 outsiders can also be brought in. A possibility of that also happening?
Oh yes. In fact, I think it's one of those things that have been happening since, I think, the Mandela administration, where even people who are not part of the ruling party are brought in, or even not members of parliament. I think the obvious example was that of the leader of Azapo then, Mzwandile Mbeje. So that was one of the people. So basically, Griselda, what the Constitution provides is that the president can appoint, let's say, 2 ministers from outside Parliament or National Assembly, if you may, or he can also do that with the deputy minister. So if he feels that there is a certain experience or strength that is outside of the National Assembly, and then he feels there's an individual out there who could be able really to push the agenda that he seeks to push, he is within his right to appoint that particular individual. So the Constitution does obviously allow him to do that. But the bulk of the people that will be appointed will be from the National Assembly. As we were explaining earlier, particularly the Deputy President, that one can only be appointed from the people in the National Assembly. So there's no chance of a Deputy President coming outside of the members of the Parliament that we know of.
Mzwandile Mbeje, a senior political reporter, live for us outside the Union buildings there. He'll be heading in very shortly.